Tonight, I will tell you a story about a married couple, their journey from familiar bliss to the madness of loss, murder, and paranormal. Believe it or not, all this was triggered by few beers. So grab your popcorns and let's go. Marko and Ivona, they had a 5-year-old son. They often went to their lakeside cottage on weekends. One day, Ivona couldn't go, so Marko and his son went alone. Marko drank a bit too much that day and didn't notice his son was drowning in the lake. When he realized his son was missing, he quickly sobered up and started searching for him. Looking into the lake, he saw his son's lifeless body floating. He tried to save him, but it was too late. When his wife found out, she blamed him forever. She said he couldn't do anything and that it wasn't his fault, but she would not believe it. So after that, they couldn't stay in their town anymore due to the memories of their son. So they decided to move to another town. They sold their old house and bought a new one in a hope that they could change their life. But there was no way of fixing the damage that had been done. Not long after moving in, they were often woken up at night by the sound of a child crying. But they couldn't figure out where it was coming from. When they tried to find the source, the crying quickly stopped. After a few days of every night crying, they decided to ask all the neighbors if they had a child or heard crying, but none did. One night, only Ivona woke up and went to find the source of the crying, which didn't stop quickly this time. The sound led her to a small room in the attic. She saw only the shadowy child. Ivona asked it why it was crying, and the child began to cry louder and then started speaking incoherently. It became louder and clearer, saying, "Daddy is to blame. Daddy is to blame." Hearing this and already blamed Marko for their son's death, Ivona lost control, went to the kitchen, took a knife, and went to the husband's room. Then she started stabbing him, shouting, "This is for Nikola! This is for Nikola!" Realizing what she has done, Ivona knew she couldn't call the police as she would be charged with murder. She dragged his body to the basement, emptied the freezer, and put his body inside. She cleaned all the blood in the house. The next day, she told neighbors that Marko has gone on a business trip. But the next night, she heard the child crying again and went upstairs. She saw the child's shadow again and heard, "Daddy's to blame." Confused, she said, "I avenged your death. What do you want me to do?" The child replied, "Do to him what he did to me." Ivona was confused and didn't understand. The next day, she learned from a neighbor that the previous tenants had a child. Neighbor told her where the former tenants lived. Ivona went to them and asked about the child. They said, "We don't know what happened to him." They mentioned the police searched for a year without success. Ivona didn't believe them and asked around in her neighborhood where a couple used to live. Neighbors said the father often beat the child and locked it in the attic room. The mother was against it, but he beat her too, so she couldn't protest much. They also said rumors where the father killed the child. The next night, Ivona went to the attic and asked the child what to do. The child kept saying, "Roses in the yard, roses in the yard." So the next morning, Ivona went to the yard, then started digging near the roses and found bones. She suspected they were the child's and took them to the police. Police confirmed they were the missing child bones and arrested the parents. Ivona went to the attic and the child said, "Now I'm free, thank you." Then a bright white light appeared in the room, and when it vanished, there was no more ghost of child to be seen. After losing her child and killing her husband without real reason, Ivona fell into the deep depression, took the knife she used on her husband and committed suicide. The next morning, the father of the child in prison was found dead with a painful expression, having died from lack of oxygen as if buried alive. The mother was released due to the lack of evidence. The police found the bodies of Marko and Ivona in the house. The house was later sold to another young couple. If you're enjoying this video, press a like.